Yep.
Okay. A few weeks ago, I heard about this crazy contest that happens every year. And it happens in a few places around the world, and it's this memory championship contest. It's a multifarious group of people that come, real average group of people, maybe, it's men, women, they're all different ages. They all have different backgrounds, and they come in and they do these crazy memory exercises, and they try to do the best that they can. Like memorizing a large group of random faces and names, and memorize it really quick. Memorize large groups of random numbers, maybe even a 50-line poem, and even a shuffled deck of cards in just crazy amount of time. One contestant that came, his name was Nelson Dallas. He came and participated in a contest early 2000s after watching his grandma just kind of deteriorate with Alzheimer's, and he wanted to strengthen his memory, so he signed up. Now in 2015, he's a 4-time champion and currently holds the record for memorizing a shuffled deck of cards in 1 minute and 3 seconds. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling. How does somebody do that? And they're these average people. They're not these crazy superhero or have these super minds. They've trained it, and they've done it using some simple techniques. So how can we apply those techniques to our everyday life? Instead of having to memorize decks of cards, we could use it to remember someone's name after you shake their hand. How often do you meet someone and then 5 minutes later you can't remember their name? Maybe it's remembering a grocery list in your memory. Maybe it's remembering your next Toastmasters speech. So I think what it all comes down to, they all have these crazy techniques for maybe remembering decks of cards or numbers, but it really all comes down to 2 things. First is you're able to take abstract things and create visual images of them so that they actually mean something to you. And we can illustrate that with this baker to baker paradox, and that's is shown with this researcher. He had a bunch of people come in and had a group of people over one side and another group of people and said, okay, I want you to remember there's this guy and his name is Baker. Remember that. Then he went to this other group and said, I want you to remember there's a guy who is a baker. And then they did some other things. And then the researcher came back and said, hey, do you remember that one word I asked you to remember? And the people that needed to remember a guy named Baker could not remember it. Everyone could remember a guy who was a baker. Why is that? Well, they didn't have an image of a guy named Baker in their head. Everyone has an image of a baker. They wear this crazy hat, they got flour in their hands, maybe they wear white, they smell good when they come home. Pretty incredible, pretty simple. The other thing that a lot of their techniques use is creating those images, but then anchoring it or storing it in your memory palace. That's some place that's really familiar to you, like your house. So I guess going back to the everyday life application, so like remembering a name. So creating these crazy images. With remembering names, you want to create that crazy image, but then you place that image on the person's face, on a prominent place that you would be able to remember that. So say you were trying to remember a guy named Emil, you would want to associate Emil with someone that's famous, because you'll be able to remember someone that's famous. So I would say maybe Evel Knievel. Evel sounds like Emil. Then I would imagine Evel Knievel riding his motorcycle across Emil's beard. So next time you would see Emil, you'd be able to remember Emil's name. Pretty simple, pretty easy to do. Then maybe it's trying to remember a grocery list. My wife Lindsay is really good at asking me to go to the grocery store and just pick up a few things. Maybe she forgot it. And then I maybe forget the list that I wrote down in the car, so now I'm in the store and I'm trying to remember what it was. But what you do is, if you were going to use these techniques, place that food in your memory palace. And you create these crazy images. The crazier and wilder, the better, because you're going to remember it. So if I were to do it, I would imagine, say, 2 avocados playing maracas outside my front door of my house. Now I step inside my house, and I see a bag of Doritos and a bag of pretzels wrestling on the rug. Then I step into my living room, and I see a pizza and a 24-pack of soda playing cards and smoking cigarettes. You create these crazy images so that when you have to go back and remember it, you can remember these images. What about remembering your Toastmasters speech? How would you do that without getting stuck to words and agonizing over the words that you crossed over and went back to and reworded, and you printed out and you brought here and you looked at it? You can create these crazy images so that you're able to kind of have that placeholder, that topic sentence, a place to start, your main point. So you can create those crazy images to remember the points you wanted to do. And I heard about these techniques a few weeks ago, and I thought, I'll just try it. And I wanted to get it all together, a few weeks ago, and practice, because they keep saying you want to practice this technique. So my crazy life allowed me to really practice it last night, and I created these images last night for my speech today. And I'll share with you the crazy images I made so that I can remember what I wanted to talk about today. First, I want to talk about the memory championship. So I created this image of these crazy nude bikers in a bike race, this giant pack of bikers coming in. They're all different, and body parts are flapping around, and they're coming towards my house. So I wanted to talk about this memory championship. Next was I wanted to recall Nelson Mandela. So I imagined Nelson Mandela standing in my house with a bell that said champion. Do you remember that? Then it was the 2 main points on how to do it. And I want to talk about the baker to baker and the baker to baker paradox. And I imagined 2 bakers challenging each other in a workout in my living room. Then I want to talk about how do you remember names. I imagined Evel Knievel riding his motorcycle between my kitchen and my living room. Remembering a grocery list, I had Lindsay Lohan eating a grocery list in my kitchen. And then how do you remember the main points in a Toastmasters speech? Evel Knievel giving his icebreaker speech in my bathroom. So it was pretty crazy. I created these images last night and points I want to talk about. And it was pretty incredible because this morning when I woke up, I could remember, I could just go down each of those images. So after reading about this memory championship and these techniques and doing it myself, I was really kind of amazed at how we really have relied on other sources for our information. We don't have to remember anything. I can just go to Google. I can just type it up and I'll look at it later when I need to. I don't have to remember it. I don't need to remember their name. I'll just go back on whatever system I need to and I'll find their picture and their name and their number, no problem. So I hope I've inspired you guys to invest in your memory and it's really a lot of fun creating these images so that you can remember names, grocery lists, or even your next Toastmasters speech. Thanks.
Let's take a minute and review